Helion 4 was never truly dark. The great mining colony stood under the glow of giant floodlights, day and night. Machines roared or transports rumbled over steel roads. From orbit, the settlement looked like a bright jewel in the endless black of space. On this night, the streets were crowded. Human miners in dust-stained overalls laughed outside the mess halls. Tall, green-skinned Dravani engineers exchanged jokes with the short, furry Thren traders. Alien ships came and went from the landing pads. Life here was noisy, warm, and full of light. And then, in a single breath, it all died. The floodlights blinked once the sand went out. The transport engines stopped mid-hum. Conversations froze. Every sound seemed to vanish, leaving a heavy, unnatural silence. For 3 seconds, people stood confused. On the 4th second, panic began. Generator failure? Someone whispered. No. Not possible, a Dravani replied, their voice trembling. The main core has triple backups. It wasn't just the lights. Personal comms went dead. Hovercarts froze in place. Even the emergency beacon atop the colony's tower gave only a weak, fading pulse before going dark. In the pitch black, the colony seemed smaller, weaker. The stars above were cold and indifferent. Then, movement. It came from the far edges of the colony, where the mining pits cut deep into Helion 4's red soil. At first it was only a shadow moving against a shadow, then more. Dozens. And then the eyes appeared. They glowed faintly yellow, slit-like. Shifting in the dark, to high off the ground to belong to any human, to steady, to be a trick of light, someone screamed. The crowd broke. Aliens pushed past humans, humans shoved back, everyone running for shelter. In the chaos, a young Thren trader tripped. He scrambled up, only to freeze as something tall and thin stepped out of the shadows. Its head tilting unnaturally like a predator studying prey. The creature didn't run. It didn't need to. It knew the dark belonged to it. Inside the colony's command center, Chief Administrator Velek barked orders at anyone still listening. The room was lit only by weak chemical glow sticks, casting pale green light across the walls. Get the generators online, he snapped. Now. They're not responding, sir, shouted a human engineer. Something's draining the grid faster than we can restart it. Velek's scaled hands twitched. Draining? By what? No one had an answer. A siren coughed to life for a single, pitiful wail, before dying again. The sound echoed through the streets like a dying breath. In the far distance, faint howls rose low, guttural, and wrong. They moved from one street to another, circling the colony like wolves testing a herd. And yet, not everyone in the dark was afraid. Far beneath the colony's main streets, in an old maintenance tunnel that smelled of oil and dust, a small group of humans moved like shadows. They wore no glowing lights, no powered armor. Their weapons were old-fashioned blades, crossbows, and a few silent slug rifles. They didn't need electricity. They didn't want it. At their head was Captain Mara Vance, a tall woman with a scar down her cheek and eyes that seemed to catch what others missed. She stopped at a junction, listening. They're here already, she said quietly. One of her men, a broad-shouldered sergeant named Cole, cocked his head. The colonists?
I know.
Mara's voice was calm. The hunters. Her team, tightened grips on their weapons. Above them, in a narrow back alley, 2 alien miners stumbled toward their quarters, guided only by the weak glow of a chemical lamp. Sound behind them made them turn. The light revealed nothing. Then it went. Out. They never screamed. In the command center, Velek slammed his fists against the console. We need patrols out there. Not with those things, a Thren guard hissed. They see in the dark. We don't. Humans do, said a voice from the shadows of the room. Everyone turned. Figure stepped forward, human woman in dark gear, her face streaked with black paint. No one had seen her enter. Velek narrowed his eyes. And you are? She didn't answer the question. She only held up a battered, old-world radio. It crackled, spitting static, before a male voice came through. Stay inside. We'll handle. Outside, the streets were empty now, save for the moving shadows. The glowing eyes prowled closer, testing the edges of the buildings, sniffing the air. From the rooftops, something else watched them. Quiet shapes, human shapes. One hunter took a step forward, only to jerk violently as a blade slid across its throat. No sound, no warning. The others froze. Somewhere in the dark, a woman's voice whispered into a throat mic, "One down. Keep moving." Down in the tunnels, Mara's team advanced toward the colony's edge. Their boots were silent. Their weapons gleamed faintly in the starlight from the vents above. Cole gave a low whistle. "Captain, we've got movement on the left, 6 of them. Let them come," Mara said. "They think this is their dark." She paused, her voice lowering into something almost like a smile. "They don't know. It's ours." By the time the first colonists dared to peek out from behind locked doors, the glowing eyes were gone. Streets were still dark, still dead, but now a faint smell of blood hung in the air. And somewhere deep in the colony's blackened tunnels, humans kept moving toward the source of the darkness itself. Because this wasn't just a blackout. This was the beginning. The hunters in the dark, the blackout on Hellion 4 was no accident. Captain Mara Vance knew it from the moment she saw the first pair of glowing eyes vanish into the shadows. Predators didn't kill the lights by chance, they killed them because darkness was their weapon. Now those same predators hunted the colony's people. Her team moved silently through the maintenance tunnels beneath the streets. Above, they could hear faint thuds, footsteps, too heavy for humans, dragging claws on steel. The sound made the air itself feel colder. Cole, the big sergeant, tightened his grip on his slug rifle. "Cap, they're spreading out. 1 count, 3 groups." Mara nodded. "Good, we'll take them apart before they realize we're here." Above ground, the streets were a graveyard. Administrator Velek stood in the command center, clutching a pistol he had no idea how to use. Every time he peered out the reinforced window, he saw shadows moving unnaturally, cutting across alleys, climbing walls. "They're playing with us," one of his guards muttered. "Like we're prey. Humans said they'd handle." Another replied, almost scoffing. "How? With knives and toy guns?" Velek wanted to believe the humans could help. But when the next scream came from just 2 streets away, his claws tapped nervously on the desk. "If those things break in here," he didn't finish the thought. In an abandoned warehouse on the colony's edge, one of the predator packs had gathered. 6 of them. Their shapes were hard to see, even up close, skin like shifting smoke, limbs too long, heads cocked at unnatural angles. The faint yellow of their eyes cut through the dark. One growled in a deep, wet rumble. Another answered. Then they froze. A faint sound, just the smallest scrape of a boot, came from above. The largest predator turned its head upward. The roof groaned. A human figure dropped from the ceiling. The fall was silent, the landing even quieter. 2 blades flashed, catching the starlight from a broken window. By the time the predators realized they were under attack, one had already fallen with its throat cut. The others lunged fast and furious, but humans didn't fight fair. Cole burst in from the side door, slug rifle whispering as it spat steel into the shadows. Another predator collapsed, 3 down. Mara's voice came sharp from the corner. "Don't let them scatter." A smaller predator darted toward the broken wall, but a tripwire snapped, a steel cable tightening around its leg. With a hiss, thrashing before a crossbow bolt ended its movement. The last 2 hesitated. That was all Mara needed. 1 strike. 2. Silence returned to the warehouse. In the tunnels, a younger member of Mara's team, Private Jice, was watching a motion scanner. "They're starting to notice," he said quietly. "The other groups are moving faster now, more cautious." Mara crouched beside him, studying the screen. 3 red blips shifted through the map. "Think they're hunting us. Let's keep it that way," Cole grinned. Bait, Mara confirmed. A few streets away, another predator pack stalked the market district. The place smelled of alien spices and burnt metal. The tall hunting shapes moved between stalls, sniffing the air. They were following a scent human blood. They didn't notice the faint shimmer of a trip laser cutting across the alley. The first predator crossed it. A door slammed shut behind them, another at the front. The whole alley was sealed. From the rooftops above, 3 humans looked down. "Light it," Mara ordered. Cole struck a flare and tossed it into the alley. For the first time, the predators were fully visible gray. Twisted bodies, covered in sinewy muscle, faces stretched with too many teeth, the humans opened fire. Slug rounds tore through the air, punching into predator flesh. One tried to climb the wall, but a throwing blade lodged deep in its skull. Another lunged upward only to be met with a shotgun blast to the face. 30 seconds later, the alley was still again. In the command center, Administrator Velek stared at the radar. Feed. The first predator hit the ground so hard, the steel floor shook. It came at Mara like a shadow, given claws and teeth, its body a blur. But humans were built for more than speed. They were built for timing. She stepped sideways, letting the beast's claws scrape past her shoulder and drove a combat blade deep under its ribs. The thing let out a wet hiss, staggered and fell. "Next," she shouted. The mining pit was alive now, live with movement, noise, and death. From every side, predators leaped from the catwalks and pit walls. Their glowing eyes were everywhere. A constellation of hunger. Cole fired short bursts, each slug punching through predator flesh with a sound like hammering stone. 2 down, 3 down. Private Jace moved like a shadow, crossbow reloading fast. He aimed for the eyes, were the only place the predators didn't have that shifting, armor-like skin. One after another, his bolts found their mark. But for every predator that fell, more emerged. Administrator Velek watched the chaos from the command center via the mining pit's old security feed. The cameras flickered, static breaking the image, but what he saw made his chest tighten. The humans were surrounded completely. His guards muttered in disbelief. They should fall back. No one survives this many. But the humans didn't fall back. They advanced. Mara led the push, moving toward the center of the pit where the shadows were thickest. The predators didn't expect it. They were used to prey running away. Cole switched to his shotgun, the weapon booming in the hollow pit. Each shot tore a predator apart at close range. Jace covered his flank, picking off anything that got too close. Then something massive stepped out of the darkness. It was taller than the rest, its body built like stone and sinew, skin shifting in smoky ripples. Its eyes burned brighter than the others. The Alpha. The smaller predators fell back slightly, forming a loose circle. The Alpha tilted its head, studying the humans like it was curious. Mara lowered her blade, just for a second. "You're the one calling the shots." It growled, a deep, echoing sound that vibrated through the floor. Then it moved. The Alpha was faster than anything that size should be. Mara barely brought her knife up in time. The force of the blow sent her sliding back across the steel. Cole fired at it, but the slugs only slowed it down. The shifting skin absorbed most of the damage. Jace eyes. Mara barked. Jace aimed, but the Alpha swatted the bolt aside mid-flight. The speed was unreal. They couldn't kill it with brute force. "Cap, we need a trap," Cole yelled, shoving a predator off the ledge into the pit's lower levels. Mara's eyes darted around, searching the terrain. Then she saw a half-collapsed crane dangling overhead. Its heavy hook swayed above the Alpha's position. Cole left. Jace drew at center. Cole charged to the left, firing to get the Alpha's attention. Jace sprinted in the opposite direction, loosing 2 more bolts. The Alpha turned to follow Jace, teeth bared. Mara sprinted for the crane controls. She grabbed the manual release. Levold, rusty, but still working, and yanked it down. The hook swung. The steel cable sang. The Alpha looked up too late. The massive crane hook slammed into its side with a sound like breaking stone, knocking it into the pit wall. The impact shook loose several tons of rock, burying part of its body. The smaller predators hissed in panic. But the Alpha wasn't dead. It shoved the debris aside and rose again, slower this time, blood running from its jaw. Its glowing eyes locked on Mara. She felt her pulse spike. "Oh, you're mad now." Cole stepped in front of her, shotgun raised. Not for long. The Alpha charged again, but this time they were ready. Jace's bolt hit first, striking deep into its left eye. It roared, staggering. Cole's shotgun roared twice more, tearing into its throat. Mara leaped forward, blade flashing, and drove it up through the bottom of the Alpha's skull. The great beast shuddered, then went still. Silence fell over the pit.
Ow.
The smaller predators hesitated, then began to retreat, melting back into the shadows. Mara stood over the Alpha's corpse, catching her breath. 3 packs down, 2 left. Cole wiped sweat from his brow. If this was just one pack, I'd hate to see the others. Jace frowned at the retreating shadows. They're not leaving. They're regrouping. Mara glanced toward the far end of the pit, where the darkness seemed thicker, almost alive. Yeah, and I think we just got their attention. In the command center, Velik watched as the human team began to move again. It killed the Alpha, he whispered. No one kills an Alpha. One of his guards leaned in. Sir, do we tell them? Tell them what? Velik asked, though he already feared the answer. That there's more than one Alpha on Helion 4, far below the colony. Deep in the abandoned mining levels, something else stirred. Bigger, meaner, older, and it had heard the death roar of its kin. The second Alpha, the mining pit, stank of blood and gunpowder. Mara stood over the dead Alpha, its glowing eyes now dull. Around her, the hum of old generators began to sputter back to life, just for a moment before dying again. No power, no lights, no help. Cole crouched near the corpse, poking at its armor-like skin. You realize this thing's hide is tougher than ship hull plating? Yeah, Mara said.
Ow.
And it still bled? Jace scanned the shadows at the far end of the pit. They're not gone. Just watching. From somewhere deep below, a low, rumbling sound rolled through the earth. It wasn't the hiss of the smaller predators. It was deeper, heavier. Mara's hand tightened on her blade. That's not an echo. Cole reloaded his shotgun. Something bigger. Up in the command center, Administrator Velik's hands trembled as he adjusted the broken camera feed. The static cleared enough for one of his guards to point at the screen, their movement. In the grainy footage, something enormous pushed through a tunnel wall stone and metal snapping like dry sticks. The guard stared in silence. That's not another Alpha. One muttered. Velik's voice was tight. No, that's the Alpha of Alphas. In the pit, dust and small rocks began to rain down. A section of the far wall cracked, then split open entirely as something stepped out. It was huge, easily 3 times the size of the first Alpha. Its skin shifted constantly, light and shadow flowing across it like smoke. But its eyes weren't just glowing. They burned like molten gold. The smaller predators bowed their heads and slinked. Aside, Mara's breath caught. Guess we found the boss. The second Alpha didn't rush them, just stood there, studying them. Its head tilted slightly, as though it recognized them more. Maybe it just recognized a challenge. Cole muttered, If it starts talking, I'm leaving. Jace whispered, If it starts talking, we're already dead. Suddenly, the Alpha moved. 1 second it was still. The next, it was a blur of muscle and teeth, crossing the pit in a heartbeat. Mara barely dodged, the force of its passing sending her rolling across the steel floor. Cole fired point blank at its side, but the slug sparked off the shifting. Skin like pebbles on glass. The Alpha's tail whipped out, hitting Cole in the chest. He flew into the pit wall with a grunt, armor denting from the impact. Cole? Mara shouted, sprinting toward him. But the Alpha blocked her path, towering over her. It opened its jaws, revealing rows of serrated teeth. Jace loosed 2 bolts in quick succession, both aimed at its eyes. The Alpha jerked its head. 1 bolt missing completely, the other lodging just above its brow ridge. The beast roared, the sound rattling the pit. In the command center, Velik's guard turned pale. I can't kill that thing. Not with what they've got. Velik didn't answer. His mind was on something else, something he'd buried deep. The last time the second Alpha appeared, it had wiped out an entire mining outpost in under an hour. No survivors. Full bodies. And now, it was here. Back in the pit, Mara switched tactics. She darted for the crane again, but this time, the Alpha seemed to know the move. It leaped onto the catwalk above, landing with a crash, and crushed the crane arm with one swipe. Mara cursed under her breath. All right, no tricks then. Cole staggered to his feet, clutching his shotgun. We'll make one. Chase moved. To cover them, firing at any smaller predators that crept too close. The Alpha lunged again, but this time Mara didn't dodge away. She stepped into the attack, sliding under its chest, and drove her blade up between its plated ribs. The weapon sank deep, but the Alpha didn't fall. It roared and swung its massive arm, catching her across the back. Pain flared white in her vision as she hit the floor hard. Cole fired again, aiming at the wound Mara had opened. The slugs hit home, spraying dark blood across the steel, but the Alpha kept coming, swiped at Cole, tearing the shotgun from his hands and sending it spinning into the shadows. Jay shouted, "Over here," and launched a bolt straight into the Alpha's mouth as it roared. This time the beast jerked back, coughing thick black fluid. The smaller predators began to circle again, encouraged by the Alpha's anger. The team was running out of space, running out of ammo, and running out of time. Mara forced herself up, grabbing Cole's spare pistol. "We hold here, no matter what." Cole grinned weakly, wasn't planning on leaving. Above them, a groaning sound came from the damaged pit wall. The dust from the collapsed wall still hung in the air like a choking fog. Mara coughed, wiping grit from her eyes. The second Alpha was trapped beneath the rubble, but its deep muffled growls still shook the ground. Cole leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "If that thing gets out—" "It will," Mara said flatly. "They always do." Jace checked his charge count. 3 left, not enough to bring down another wall. The silence didn't last long. Strange sound began to echo through the tunnels, soft at first, then rising. A steady, clicking rhythm, like claws tapping metal. Mara's stomach tightened. They're regrouping. Cole frowned. "Yeah, but why aren't they rushing us?" Jace glanced toward the shadows. "'Cause they're hurting us." Up in the command center, Administrator Velek watched the motion trackers. Dozens of blips moved in unison, surrounding the human's position. "They're pushing them inward," his tech officer said. "Inward to what?" Velek asked. But deep down, he already knew. There were places in Hallian Force tunnels the miners had sealed long ago, places no one went anymore, places where the predators bred. In the pit, the clicking grew louder. The predators moved with precision, blocking each exit one by one. Cole spat on the floor. "They're smarter than I thought." "Not just smart," Mara said. "They're planning something." Jace shifted uneasily. "If they want us to go deeper, maybe we don't give them what they want?" They tried to retreat toward the surface, but the path was already blocked. Dozens of glowing eyes filled the tunnel, too many to fight in the open. Mara gave the order. "Go left. Now." The team moved fast, ducking into a narrow maintenance shaft. The walls were wet with condensation, and the air smelled like rust and old oil. Behind them, claws scraped against the floor. Predators followed, never rushing, just keeping pace. They came to a cross-section. Jace froze. This map says left is sealed." Cole gave him a look. "Guess we go right then." They turned right and the smell hit them first. It was thick and rotten, like meat left in the sun for days. Then they saw it. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber. The floor was covered in bones, human, alien, animal, everywhere. The walls pulsed with strange black webbing. In some places, it moved as if alive. Cole's voice was tight. "We're in a nest." Mara scanned the darkness. Not just a nest, a breeding ground. Shapes moved in the shadows. Smaller predators, dozens of them, skittered across the walls and ceiling. But they weren't attacking. They were watching. From the far end of the chamber came a sound unlike any they'd heard before, deep, throaty, almost like a growl mixed with a hiss. Jace whispered, "What the hell makes that noise?" Something massive stepped into the faint light. It looked like the Alpha's, but its body was twisted. Longer limbs, more armor, eyes glowing a fierce white instead of gold. Its back was covered in pulsating sacs, each one faintly transparent, filled with shifting shapes. Cole swore under his breath, "That's a queen." Mara didn't answer. Her mind was already racing. Up in the command center, Velik's face drained of color. They found her. One of his guards looked confused. "That's good, right? They kill her?" Velik shook his head. "No. If they threaten her, every predator on this moon will come for them, and nothing will stop them." The queen stepped closer, her long claws scraping the stone. She made no move to attack. Instead, she tilted her head, studying the humans, like an apex predator weighing a strange new prey. The smaller predators began to shift positions, closing the circle around the team. Cole's voice was low. "We're not leaving this room alive." Mara's eyes narrowed. "Yes, we are." She glanced at Jace. "Still got those 3 charges?" He nodded. "Yeah, but they're not enough to. They don't need." "To kill her," Mara interrupted. "They just need to make her move." Cole caught on. "If we blow the supports, the ceiling comes down," Mara finished. "And maybe, just maybe, the rest of them scatter long enough for us too. Get out." The predators sensed the shift in their posture. The circle tightened. Jace moved fast, planting one charge on a central pillar of rock. Cole covered him, firing short bursts to keep the smaller predators at bay. The queen's eyes locked on Mara, unblinking. As Jace set the final charge, the queen let out a scream of piercing and human sound that rattled the very walls. From every tunnel, more glowing eyes appeared. Hundreds, maybe more. "Done," Jace shouted. Mara didn't hesitate. "Blow it." The explosions ripped through the chamber. The ceiling groaned, then gave way, sending a storm of rock and debris crashing down. The queen lunged backward, vanishing into the collapsing darkness. The smaller predators scattered, their clicking replaced by screeches of panic. Dust filled. The air and the ground shook like it would split apart. When the rumble finally stopped, the team was crouched behind a slab of fallen rock, coughing but alive. Cole looked at the blocked tunnels. "We bought ourselves some time?" Mara stared into the settling dust. Not enough. From somewhere beyond the collapse, deep and distant, the second Alpha roared. Last light, the tunnels shook as the roar of the second Alpha echoed through the rock. Dust drifted from the cracked ceiling. Mara didn't need to say it. They all knew the collapse hadn't stopped the hunt. Cole checked his weapon. 1 mag left. Jace muttered. "I've got 5 rounds. Then it's sticks and stones." The cum in Mara's ear crackled weakly. Velik's voice came through, strained. "We've restored partial power topside. I can give you light. Maybe for 10 minutes. You need to move." Mara replied, "Understood. Prep evac." They began. Moving up through the tunnels, every step echoing too loudly in the silence. Somewhere behind them, faint clicking kept pace. Halfway to the surface, the power-surged old wall lights flickered on, casting long, jagged shadows. For a moment the glow felt like safety. Then the shadows moved. Dozens of predators clung to the walls and ceiling, their eyes reflecting white in the flicker. The light didn't hurt them. Emmett only showed how close they were. Cole fired first, dropping 2 of them. Jace followed, covering the rear. Mara shouted, "Keep moving, they're stalling us!" The team ran hard, boots splashing through shallow water. The predators didn't chase at full speed. They darted ahead, cutting off side passages, guiding them toward the main exit. They burst into a wide cavern, the last chamber before the surface lift. The lift platform stood in the center, faintly humming from the restored power. But between the team and escape stood the second Alpha. It was bigger than they remembered. Its armor plates cracked from the earlier collapse, but its movements just as fast. Its glowing eyes locked on Mara. The air went still. Then the Alpha charged. Cole fired into its chest, the shot sparking harmlessly off armor. Jace aimed for the joints, slowing it slightly, but it kept coming. Mara rolled aside as its claws tore a deep gash into the stone floor where she'd stood. The fight became a blur of fire, sparks, and the deafening roars of the Alpha. Jace screamed, "We can't kill it!" Mara's mind raced. Then she saw the old coolant tanks stacked against the wall, marked with faded hazard signs. "Draw it to the tanks," she yelled. Cole took the bait, firing at the Alpha's face, then retreating toward the tanks. The beast followed, swiping wildly. Mara sprinted to the control panel, flipping the manual override. Steam hissed as coolant began leaking out, coating the floor in frost. The Alpha slipped for a fraction of a second. It was all they needed now. Mara shouted. Jace fired his last round into the nearest tank. The bullet punched through metal. Then the explosion came. A burst of freezing vapor and shrapnel. The Alpha roared in agony as the cold bit into its armored hide, cracking plates and exposing raw muscle. Cole didn't hesitate. He aimed for the exposed spot and emptied the rest of his mag. The Alpha stumbled, let out one last furious roar, and collapsed. The impact shook the cavern. Silence followed. Then the clicking began again. From the tunnel behind them, dozens no, hundreds of glowing eyes appeared. The smaller predators had been waiting. Jace's voice was tight. "We're out of ammo." Mara glanced at the lift. "Not out of time." "Go!" They sprinted onto the platform as the predators swarmed into the cavern. Claws scraped metal. Screeches filled the air. Alex's voice crackled in her ear. "I'm bringing you up now." The lift groaned as it began to rise. The predators leapt, some landing. On the edge, clawing their way toward them. Cole kicked one back, nearly losing his balance. Jace swung a broken rifle like a club. Mara grabbed a fallen flare, lit it, and shoved it into the face of a predator climbing over the side. It screeched and fell into the darkness below. The platform neared the surface when the power flickered. For a heartbeat, it stopped moving. The predators saw their chance. They swarmed upward, claws scraping, teeth snapping. Then the sunlight broke over the edge of the shaft. The creatures froze. Their glowing eyes dimmed, their bodies twitching. One by one, they backed away, hissing, retreating into the dark. The lift rose into the open air, leaving the predators behind. Mara stepped off first, breathing in the cold surface wind. Bellic was waiting, relief on his face. "You made it,"